Welcome to this explainer on the Indian Railways Master Circular 2026. Look, if you've been trying to wrap your head around the absolute massive infrastructural shift happening right now across India's freight landscape, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're giving you your complete, structured guide to understanding how private entities can actually develop and operate Gati Shakti multimodal cargo terminals straight from the government's official policy framework. Let's get right into it. We're going to break down this huge bureaucratic policy into 5 really actionable stages. We'll cover the Gati Shakti framework, who can operate the terminals, capital costs and funding, maintaining the assets, and finally, cargo-related facilities. All right, Section 1, the Gati Shakti framework. Let's just dive right into the core vision here and establish exactly what it is we're building. So, the PM Gati Shakti framework was launched to create this seamless, integrated logistics ecosystem, right? But to do that, you need actual physical nodes. And that brings us to our first core definition, a GCT cargo terminal, or GCT. Basically, a GCT is your private gateway to the massive Indian railway network. Instead of relying on public goods sheds, a GCT actually allows private operators to build and manage dedicated facilities just for loading and unloading heavy rail-based freight. It is literally the critical link where the railway tracks meet private enterprise. But you know, a terminal isn't just about tracks and trains. The crucial distinction to understand here is cargo-related facilities, or CRFs. While a GCT handles the physical movement of the trains and the wagons, a CRF handles the logistics happening just beyond the tracks. We're talking about the warehousing, the processing, the packaging, the whole shebang. It's the true supply chain operations that make moving freight actually profitable and efficient. Moving on to Section 2. Who can operate terminals? Now that we've got a clear picture of what these terminals and facilities actually are, let's explore who's eligible to build and operate them. The really cool thing here is that the Indian Railways have made this policy incredibly open. The doors are open to almost everyone, no matter what your corporate structure looks like. Are you a sole proprietor? Well, you just need your PAN and TAN, get started. Are you a registered company? Just bring your standard incorporation documents. Or maybe you're putting together a massive joint venture or consortium. No problem, just bring your JV agreement and lead member authorization. So the barrier to entry isn't really about how your business is structured on paper, it's entirely about your capability to deliver and execute on the ground. Now, there is a crucial fork in the road for this entire master circular, and you definitely want to keep this in mind. Throughout this explainer, remember that your rules, your timelines, and your costs change dramatically based on land ownership. So Schedule 1 dictates the rules if you're building entirely on your own private non-railway land. On the flip side, Schedule 2 takes over if you need to lease land from the railways to build your terminal. Let's look at a Schedule 1 example, building on your own land. This specific timeline basically guarantees that bureaucratic bottlenecks aren't going to delay your project's launch. Check this out. You submit an online application with a remarkably low fee of just 20,000 rupees. From there, the railways actually commit to giving you an in-principle approval, an IPA, within just 20 days. Then, you've got 4 weeks to submit your detailed engineering scale plan. Once that's approved and a 10 lakh rupee security deposit is made, you're clear to break ground. This whole sequence is specifically designed for speed and rapid deployment. Next up, Section 3, capital costs and funding. Let's get into the financials and see how this builds into actual capital expenditure. Let's figure out who pays for what. So the general rule of thumb is pretty simple. If it's for your commercial terminal, well, you pay for it. The GCT operator bears the capital cost from the takeoff point. And just to clarify, that's the exact switch on the track where the train leaves the main line and enters your terminal. You pay for your yard's electrification, and you pay for the vital procurement and maintenance of weighbridges. But if the project requires upgrades to the general railway infrastructure, say a new crossing station or signaling that improves train mobility for everybody, that's called a common user traffic facility, or SUF, and the railways bear that cost entirely. What happens if you're ready to build and the railways are, a bit slow to sanction the funds for that common user traffic facility? Well, the policy actually has a brilliant workaround. You, as the developer, can choose to just fund and build those common railway assets yourself to speed up your project. And in return, the railways will reimburse you by giving you a 10% freight discount on your inward and outward traffic until your entire capital cost is recovered. It's totally a win-win that keeps your private timelines completely on track. Now, let's think long-term for a second. Let's say you've built your track connecting to the main line. What happens 5 years from now if another private operator builds a terminal right next door and they want to connect to the main line by branching off of your private track? Do they just get a free ride on your investment? Absolutely not. The policy mandates an exact mathematical formula to handle this exact scenario. It precisely calculates the proportionate present market value of the land and your initial capital expenditure. That new operator is legally bound to pay you this calculated sum before they can even connect. So your initial investment is thoroughly protected from any piggybacking. Okay, Section 4, maintaining the assets. Because obviously, building the terminal is just the beginning. Operating it efficiently over decades really requires a crystal clear understanding of maintenance boundaries. Honestly, think of it like renting an apartment versus owning the furniture inside of it. Because railway movement is a highly specialized and, frankly, dangerous operation, the railways take full responsibility for maintaining the core safety tech. So that's the tracks, the complex signaling equipment, and the overhead electrical lines starting right from the takeoff point. But you, as the operator, are strictly responsible for maintaining your commercial GCT yard. That means the loading and unloading lines, the drainage, and all the internal roads are completely your responsibility. And operationally, there is zero downtime. The absolute bottom line here is continuous 24/7 movement. Your terminal has got to be operational round the clock every single day, including Sundays and holidays. Now, while the railways do cover the fuel and electricity for their locomotives while they're inside your yard, you carry the liability for clearing all dues, especially demurrage charges if you happen to hold up wagons for way too long. And as for security, a very strict geographic boundary applies. Railways protect the assets on their land, but securing everything outside that perimeter, that falls entirely on you. So what kind of timeline are we actually looking at for this level of operational commitment? Well, if your GCT is built fully or even partially on railway land, the agreement and the land lease are locked in for a maximum tenure of 35 years. That long-term horizon is exactly what provides the massive security you need to justify making such heavy capital investments in national logistics infrastructure. All right, Section 5, cargo-related facilities. Finally, let's step off the tracks for a moment and look at the broader ecosystem governed specifically by Schedule 3 of this Master Circular. This is where the commercial upside really opens up. If you develop a cargo-related facility on spare railway land, you're essentially providing value-added services. You aren't just moving boxes anymore. You are warehousing, processing, and packaging. And crucially, the policy grants you the right to fix your service charges uniformly based on completely free market conditions. There is a small catch, though. You have to operate it as a common access facility. You absolutely cannot discriminate against any rail customer who wants to pay your rates. That being said, the policy is highly practical. Like, for example, if a customer is storing a specific grade of bulk cement in one of your silos, you are legally permitted to restrict access to that specific silo, just, to prevent cargo mixing and damage. Now, if you're leasing surplus railway land strictly under Schedule 3 to build these cargo-related facilities, your initial contract duration is set at 25 years. But, and this is brilliant, the policy actually grants you a first right of refusal at the very end of that term. This means when the 25 years are up and the facility is put back out to tender, if another bidder comes in and offers a higher price, you have the legal right to match their bid and retain control of the facility you built. Pretty great, right? What we've seen today is so much more than just a regulatory document. The Master Circular 2026 takes a historically complex web of railway logistics and translates it into a structured, highly lucrative runway for private capital. It defines the costs, secures the timelines, and completely opens up the supply chain for market-driven growth. The framework is laid out, the doors are wide open, leaving us with one final fascinating thought to ponder. As this policy completely reshapes the landscape, who are going to be the private players that step up to truly build and command the future of Indian freight? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning and keep building.